So the next session is from connection to action, making change happen. And I'm really excited that we have speakers here today from Ozone, our headline partner, and The Independent, and independent media too. So without further ado, please welcome to the stage, and please put your hands together.
Thank you. Good morning, and fantastic to be here on this glorious day. I'm Emma, Senior Director of Advertising at Ozone, and as the headline sponsor of this event, we are proud to bring you this brilliant session today. For those who don't know who Ozone are, we're a digital advertising agency, but with a business with a difference. So we are powered by the human connections created by audience-first publishers, places where people turn to be informed, inspired and engaged every single day. And as you can imagine, news makes up a large part of that. Now, we originally were planning to talk to you about today about the impact of brand safety tools and keyword block lists on what is perceived to be good or bad news content. Because whilst this audience are highly engaged and incredibly valuable, some brands are turning away because of brand safety concerns. Now, what we are not here today to debate is why news is brand safe. For that, please go to the Newsworks website or Stagwell's Future of News study, or later this week, Bountiful Cow are releasing some exciting research. Instead, here today, we're going to talk about something bigger, about why the investment in news brands is so important and the societal impact that your investment into journalism can make. In an industry that's obsessed with effectiveness, we're going to explore how the audience-first medium not only informs, but also can turn connections into impact. Every day, our publishers are creating brilliant campaigning journalism, holding the powerful to account. And while we could have explored many of these campaigns today, we're going to deep dive into just one of them, which brings me nicely on to introduce you to Caroline Gammell, the Assistant Editor of The Independent, and Beth Gordon, the Director of Brand Marketing Communications. Now, The Independent have an award-nominated campaign, Brick by Brick, which is in partnership with Refuge. It's a fundraising initiative to build safe houses for women and children escaping domestic abuse. It was launched in September 2024, and its aim was to provide safe and secure houses for survivors of domestic abuse. They've built their first house, and the second one is almost done. These houses have a difference compared to other safe houses because they welcome all children and all women, so even teenagers and pets, which is different from other safe houses. Beth, now this is obviously an incredible cause. What made you pick this issue as being one to challenge?
I mean, The Independent has always been a campaigning organisation. Since we were launched in 1986, we've always campaigned for causes and communities where we feel that we can make a difference. We also know that our readership feels tremendously passionate about making a difference and feels that they can make a difference. So we really take decisions about who we support seriously. And we look at three things broadly in identifying a cause and a charity. First of all, we look at whether it's a topical issue. Domestic abuse is topical and people have a baseline knowledge about it. But then we look at the truth. So we look whether it's topical, but we look at whether we can tell truths that people don't know about. And domestic abuse, the scale and the breadth is something that people simply don't understand. And it allows us to tell stories that will really help change things. People don't realise that domestic abuse is such an epidemic that every 20 seconds the police are called with a reported domestic abuse. But that is only 24% of the actual crimes committed. They don't know that 40% of women who are homeless are there due to domestic abuse. They don't know the scale of the amount of lives that are being lost. They don't know that it's costing the UK economy £23 billion a year. And these are all stories that we felt we could tell. But the third thing, which is so important when we start a campaign, is whether we can do something tangible at the end of it. We never just raise money, we raise money for something. So people can see where their money has gone and they can feel proud that they've made a difference. We've worked with Refuge for a number of years and it's a relationship that's really grown, and we really felt that this was the time to do something that could actually help save lives. With Refuge accommodation, and we'll go more into it, and as Emma said, at the moment, it's not fit for purpose and there's simply not of it. So every 2 hours a woman is turned away from a refuge. But as well as overcapacity, they are not appropriate and not suitable for so many people. They're not. I wouldn't be allowed to go in because I have a teenage son. People with teenage sons can't go into domestic abuse, shared refuges. You can't go in if you've got pets. You can't go in if a member of your family is LGBTQ+. You can't go in if you're disabled. You can't go in if you're neurodiverse. So this is a whole new way of approaching refuge accommodation, which simply means that more people are going to be helped and more lives are going to be saved.
Fantastic. What is it about the independence audience that make you realise that this cause would resonate well with them?
We know that they want to make a difference. We know that they were really supportive of our work with Refuge so far. We had a campaign that we ran the year before with a charity called Zarak. Zarak is a really small charity based in Leeds, but are doing incredible work at tackling the fact that at the moment there are so many children living in extreme poverty in this country that 1 million children don't have a bed. So we quickly worked with Zarak, and over the course of a few weeks made sure that 1,000 beds were delivered directly into children's homes by Christmas. So we learnt so much from that campaign using the tangible, truth, topical thing that we really felt that we could make a difference. And this campaign was a year in the making, so we really had to do lots of homework around the issue, yeah.
Caroline, looking back at the work you've done in this space, which aspects of it do you think hit the hardest?
We found out very quickly that it was the personal stories. I mean, the stats are horrific. 1 in 4 women are caught up in domestic abuse. But when we really found the engagement and the response from our readers, when we told the stories of women who directly experienced it. So there was a particularly striking story right at the beginning of a woman called Esther who suffered horrendous abuse and ended up being held hostage in her flat for a week by her boyfriend, too scared to leave. And then we had celebrities coming forward and telling their story. Victoria Derbyshire told her story about her father throwing scalding soup over her when she was standing in the kitchen in her school uniform. And that had a huge impact. People really were engaged and sort of horrified by the level of detail and experience that she'd had. Sherry Blair told us about the day when she got pushed down the stairs in a courtroom because she was defending this woman, and the defendant came out of the dock and pushed her down the stairs. So there were all these kinds of different stories, and as we went on, it was the personal stories. It wasn't just famous people, or it was working mothers, it was working women, it was children. 1 in 5 children lives in a house where there is some kind of element of domestic abuse. So I think it was that real breadth of story that engaged our readers.
It's a really shocking fact. And if you do it again, what would you emphasise?
I think one of the hardest parts of this whole campaign is that it's so hard to get justice in domestic abuse. So we had so many stories that we had and we were told with shocking details that we couldn't publish because it was the abuser's word against the victim. And because it hadn't gone to court, it hadn't secured a conviction, it was not legally safe. So that was deeply frustrating for us. So we had huge numbers of stories, but we also had a lot that we couldn't publish. So I think if we did again, we would go again and emphasise the really low levels of conviction.
You've really taken this cause beyond the words and the videos that we see in the Independence content. Can you tell us how you brought this campaign to life and how you kept your audience engaged as well?
Sure. So when we started this, as Beth said, we wanted something tangible. So the editor was very clear. We need to have a plot of land and then we need to build up from there. So before we even started, we spoke to various different house builders. We ended up doing an amazing partnership with Persimmon, but we had identified a plot of land that we hoped we would get enough money to be able to build the house there. So we knew we had this plot, so we were ready to go if the donations came in. So we aimed for one house, and then very quickly the response was so good that we ended up beating our 300,000 target quite quickly. So we then could have another one. So straight away we knew we could start building. So within about 6 weeks we had enough money to break ground. And just keeping that going, keeping that fact that the house was being built. And we were able to do snapshots very carefully because no one is allowed to know where the house is. Even the builders building it didn't know what they were building. So when we were doing the sort of snapshot videos, we had to take enormous care. Like one of the builders had a tattoo on their arm. We had to block it out, muzz it, in case someone else recognised that builder and said, oh, hang on, that was the property I was working on. So it was real life going alongside all the stories as well.
Oh, fantastic. And what's next when it comes to campaigning for the Independent? Will we continue to see further work in this space?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we like to do. So we've just done a sort of partnership with the Gates Foundation. They do with a couple of media outlets. So we're looking at climate change and maternal health in sub-Saharan Africa. But closer to home, we're looking at indefinite jail sentences, which were abolished about in 2010. There are still 3,000 prisoners who were given original sentences of 18 months and 10 years later they're still in prison for minor crimes. They're spending longer in prison than murderers in some cases. So we're still sort of banging the drum for that, and that's been mentioned in Westminster a few times. We're looking at clean water. Yeah, we're always trying to find the next thing, so we very much will continue to do so.
Very important work. And this is an incredible piece of work with the domestic houses. From a journalistic point of view, how important is advertising funding for your media channel to make that a reality?
Without advertising, we just wouldn't be able to do any of this. It means that we reach more people, it means we help people, and it means that we change lives. But it's more important than that. If without advertising, independent journalism wouldn't stay independent. It ensures that the news people are seeing is non-partisan, fact-checked, and isn't distorted by lies. 70% of people at the moment believe that without independent journalism, democracy itself would be at risk. So it's no exaggeration to say that if advertisers weren't supporting this, not only would we not be able to help people and amplify marginalised voices and tell these amazing stories, but democracy itself would be at risk. And at the moment, that is so important, so important. Advertisers have got such an important role to play in making sure that radicalisation and division and hate stop. And advertisers should be really proud of investing in journalism like this, not just for the campaigning, but for the everyday work that Caroline and her team does.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you see an impact on that in terms of your advertising spend affecting, what you can invest in? How have you seen the cycle of it?
It's critical to everything we do.
Yeah.
So it's just we're every single day we're grateful for the fact that advertisers are making all of this possible.
And your audience are leaning into that as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, no, they do. Our audience is so passionate about this. They really want to make a difference. They really want to hear these stories.
Yeah.
So it's a critically important thing for people, for communities, but also for democracy.
Please talk to us about the fact we were talking about earlier about the donkey fact.
This is shocking. So it is an epidemic of violence at the moment. It is everywhere. A quarter of the women you have seen today will be affected by domestic abuse. It's shocking. And yet, the support it receives is absolutely shocking. So a donkey sanctuary in this country receives more money in donations than the leading 4 domestic abuse charities combined. So even though it affects a quarter of women, 20% of children, it is killing people every week, people aren't supporting it. And so this is why things like this are so important, but not just raising money for this, but telling these stories and just really hoping that people support it more and understand what a huge, huge thing it is for all of us.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you could leave the brands and advertisers in the room with just one thought about what we've discussed today, what would it be?
Do you go first?
Please keep supporting us. It's so important. And we do campaign every day. And without you and without advertising, we just wouldn't be able to do this. It has never been more important to support communities and people and causes and tell these stories truthfully and with responsibility.
Caroline?
And I'd just say very simply, it's about the people and the level of engagement we got. We could bang the drum and say, the Prime Minister supported us, the Queen supported us, great, which was wonderful and really brilliant that they did, and brilliant that people like Helen Mirren and Olivia Colman and Rylan and Dermot O'Leary and all those sorts of people. But it was actually our individual readers. We did a thing where you texted BRIC and you could donate £15 and thousands of pounds came through them. So it's the people and the level of engagement that we had with this campaign, which was really overwhelming for us.
Thank you. We've just got to remember that we are what we invest in, so we've got to invest wisely. Thank you so much, Beth and Caroline.
Thank you.
Thank you.